There are a lot of reasons to expect a big slowdown, maybe a recession, and probably an equities bear market in 2024. But I think the question is, why hasn't it happened yet? Because a lot of this stuff that's out there as red flags has been there for a while. Consumer spending should tank with all the consumer debt that we've taken on, things like that. Those things have been there for a while, and yet they haven't blown anything up, and we're still kind of sort of growing in the US at least. Big parts of Europe are flat to negative right now, but the US still has positive top line numbers in most of the economic reports. And I think there are two reasons why we haven't dropped into a recession yet, and one is fiscal stimulus. The US government is running insane levels of deficits right now, crisis levels of deficits. We might take on $2 trillion of new debt this year, which is, I am old enough to remember before we had even $1 trillion of total debt, and now we're taking on twice that in a year. So that's stimulative when the government borrows huge amounts of money and spends it. Although in this case, a big part of the deficit is interest. And that's a whole separate story that we should talk about in a minute. But now I'll just, and the other thing that is supporting the global economy is a kind of a wild card. It's the AI-driven microchip boom that's going on out there. Generative AI is a fairly new thing. It's just in the last couple of years, it's become a hot topic. And the companies that make the chips that run AI systems now are few and very specialized. So NVIDIA and a handful of others are seeing massive sales. And which is, by the way, unfortunate. Well, actually, it's a good thing. I tried to short NVIDIA because it looked wildly overvalued about 6 months ago. And it turns out it's very hard to short something like NVIDIA because of the option premiums, which that's maybe a technical term for some of your viewers, but basically it means it's super expensive to bet against a stock like NVIDIA. So I didn't short it, which is a good thing because it's up another 100 points. It's not a $1 trillion company, and there's really no end in sight to the sales boom for those guys. Anyhow, that's supporting the global economy as well. Going forward, I think there are still a lot of things that point to a downturn, and one of the big ones now is layoffs. We're seeing headlines about big companies announcing big layoffs out there, and it's accelerating. Citigroup just announced 20,000 people being fired here pretty soon. And among the big tech stocks in Silicon Valley, you're seeing regular 10,000 layoff announcements from most of them. So it could be that the labor market, which has been pretty tight for the last couple of years, is going to loosen up dramatically pretty soon here with a lot of people being laid off. And the way that works is the people who get fired tend to spend way less after they get fired, which causes other people to be laid off and so on, until you get this snowball effect that puts the economy into recession. So I still think that's a thing, and I think it's going to happen pretty soon. And meanwhile, the manufacturing indexes that the Fed reports every once in a while have gone into contraction in the US. So our manufacturing sector is shrinking. California has a sudden $68 billion budget deficit, which means they're going to have to cut a lot of services, which in the biggest state, it's maybe the fifth biggest economy in the world if it was a country. So they're looking at a serious recession in the year ahead. And then the Fed has partially walked back their we're going to cut interest rates in the short term guidance. So it could be that interest rates will stay where they are or go up a little bit, which is also a recessionary indicator. So you add all that up, and I still think 2024 is a recession year, but it hasn't happened as soon as it probably should have otherwise.